Hey, what's up everybody? This is Rick501 and today I want to go over the patch notes that were pretty much just released an hour ago, and they should be going live sometime today. Before we actually get into all of this, I've already gone over them. They're pretty bad. I think a lot more people are going to be playing offline pretty much all of the time that they're playing the game now, unless you're Amara, I guess. But they're definitely not good with how the game is at the end game right now. Maybe this stuff is building towards a future update or something, or content coming that's going to actually add a robust end game to the game, but as of right now, these are, in my opinion, terrible changes. So this week's Borderlands 3 hotfixes adjust legendary gear across all manufacturers. Our goal with legendary gear is to enable a large variety of playstyles and builds for all characters. After looking through the data, we found that some pieces of legendary gear were greatly outperforming others and felt that there were limiting builds instead of increasing them. I pretty much guarantee you right now that with playing this patch, there will be less builds that people are using, and people will pretty much all be going closer and closer to using the same couple builds. In addition, some of the damage output of legendary gear limited the growth in combat engagements for the future, so we adjusted everything to an acceptable median. We expect all volunteers to be able to create amazing builds, and we have to support that with more ways to grow and reach those power levels. So the only thing I could think of that this stuff actually would make sense in is if they were building all the balance to be pretty much put alongside of new content coming out. But because right now with this game, there's no end game activities in this game that are at all difficult, or pretty much anything that's considered an actual end game. Everything that is in the end game in this game is all stuff, anything that's actually worth doing is all stuff that's able to be done at lower levels without even completing the normal campaign yet. So there's not really an end game. And then balancing the actual like really fun items that, even though are pretty overpowered, are the only thing that's actually staying fun and relevant for people. So let's get into the numbers. Maliwan Westergun damage increased by 25%. ASMD damage increased by 28%. I think that's the sniper. Cutsman damage reduced by 25%, which will probably make Cutsmans not use that much. I don't see either of these weapons being used that much either, because the changes, and this is a big thing about a lot of this, is a lot of these numbers for the buffs are so much less than what they're doing to weapons they're nerfing. Like they'll nerf, like some of these nerfs you'll see are just absolutely ridiculous and will nerf multiple things of an item at the same time, and then we get like a 25% damage increase to a weapon that's never really going to be used, and that's not going to change the use most likely. 10-gallon damage increased by 8%. I don't see pretty much anybody using this in any top builds anyway. 8% is not going to change that in the slightest. Sickle reload speed increased by 25%. I don't see this weapon being used, and this won't change it. Phaser damage increased by 15%. This might be used actually, because this weapon is kind of teetering on maybe useful in some builds, but still not top tier. Infinity damage increased by 40%. You're going to need like 140% to make infinity pistols useful. Magnificent damage increased by 25%. Maybe if you get a dual barrel one of those with like some build that can keep the ammo up, maybe that'll be useful. Jericho damage increased by 40%. I don't think the Jericho's damage was what was actually making it not usable. So if you don't know what the Jericho is, that's basically the rocket that when you shoot it, it basically kind of goes as a mortar. It goes out, then up, and then lands. It's completely ridiculous. Like it's completely useless because of how it actually blows up, and you're gonna need to make it so ridiculous damage to actually make this thing useful. 40% is decent. That one may be useful, but I seriously doubt it. Lucian's call accuracy and handling reduced. Don't know if that really is gonna make this thing not used anymore. It's probably not gonna change how many people use it anyway. It also really doesn't make sense to me that the Lucian's Call was not nerfed past that, because that is one of the top tier weapons. Like, absolutely one of the top tier weapons and used in a lot of the strongest builds. It's weird that they didn't decide to nerf damage on that at all, especially with the changes of this other stuff. So Lyuta's critical damage bonus decreased by 30%, so that's already a massive change. And made a modification to address a reported bug that an extra bullet was spawned in the center. So not reading through this, basically, the Lyuta shots goes from 1 to 3 at a certain distance, and supposedly there was a bug that was spawning a 4th in the middle, I guess. We'll see if Lyuta is still useful after this. I honestly don't think Lyuta is going to be used. I think there's still going to be a few weapons. It'll probably be used at some point, but I think there's a few weapons that'll just absolutely destroy Lyutas now, including Lucian's Call, which is probably going to teeter to be better than Lyuta at this point. And this is a massive nerf, but I do think this nerf is probably the fairest one in this, because the Lyuta was absolutely ridiculous. But I think this one is probably the only fair one in this of the nerfs. Tribal damage increased by 25%. I still don't see that being used. Alchemist damage increased by 25%. Probably not going to be used. Devil's Foursome damage increased by 13%. Possibly as like a weapon that you just use for killing mobs and not a boss or anything, because that weapon was okay before. Now we have the absolute destruction of weapon that's never going to be used again in the state. Flakka now consumes the full magazine with fired, and the damage is reduced by 33%. So this doesn't even... This is pretty much just them adding an augment to how this is sounding. No matter what, this weapon is going to use the full clip. No matter if you have magazine size increases or anything like that, it's always going to use the full clip. I guess we'll read the rest. Flakka is greatly outperforming other shotguns due to the number of projectiles and the high rate of fire. We believe the spread would cause the explosive to miss a target. However, this turned out to be false, so why not increase the spread? So reduce the projectile damage and allow the weapon to only fire once per magazine. So, like I said, this thing's going to be useless. 33% damage reduction would make this weapon still a good weapon, but not completely overpowered. But they made it always now, no matter how big you can make the magazine, it fires it all in one shot. What? This is not going to be used at all anymore. The Flakka is useless now. Like, completely. Laser Exploder, rocket projectile spawn interval increased by 0.4 seconds. Jacob's Maggie damage increased by 35%. Seems a bit weird, because wasn't it a bug that was reducing the damage? So is this just bringing it back up to what it should be? I guess. Hellfire damage, or Hellwaker damage reduced by 8%. I mean, I guess that's a fair nerf. I don't think that's going to change anything either way. Hyperion, we found that a couple legendary Hyperion weapons bypass the Hyperion manufacturer's playstyle too easily, making their bonuses greatly outweigh the penalties. The Butcher is drastically outperforming all metrics, and we choose to reduce the damage in order to keep the fast fire rate. Conference Call damage increased by 50%. That's actually needed. Conference Calls will probably be used quite a bit more now. This is actually like a good change that would actually bring a weapon up to being a useful tier. Crossroad accuracy reduced, and now it fires 3 projectiles instead of 4. Crossroad, probably close to dead at this point. That's basically a 25% damage reduction, and it's less accurate. Crossroad already wasn't that accurate at long range at all. Like, the spread was absolutely ridiculous at any range. There wasn't, like, at any medium to long range. And now it fires 3 projectiles instead of 4. This weapon was a pretty good weapon, top tier, but not overpowered by any means. So they nerfed this weapon, probably going to be replaced by most people, which this is not like this weapon will now have equal use across other weapons. It's that this weapon will now just not be used, probably. Butcher accuracy reduced and damage reduced by 25%. I don't really see many people like using the Butcher. I know you can do it with Moe's, with like a unlimited ammo build, but That's the only time this thing's ever going to be used, because it just drains ammo too quickly for how much damage it does. And now it's just 25% less. It's not going to be used by anything besides maybe in a Mo's build. Vacancy damage increased by 20%. This weapon still is not going to be used even relatively by anything ever. Children of the Vault, Skessus damage increased by 50%. I actually don't know what weapon this is. I can't actually remember what weapon this is. Lenoge damage increased by 25% or 20%. Pain is power damage increased by 25%. Pain is power might be useful now. Maybe Lenoge too. I think these two were kind of used some. Ruby's wrath damage increased by 10%. Still never going to be used. Now here's some other destructions. Hex and Firestorm were calibrated to the wrong grenade modifier. These two grenades were envisioned to specialize by applying elemental dots to targets. Instead, they were resulting in large amounts of damage, and the elemental dots were minimal. Realized this is a drastic change on both these grenades, but we did not want to remove the spectacle, the grenade, number of grenades spawned, number of targets hit, etc. Focus on allowing those core identity to be emphasized instead of them continuing to just be high damage grenades. Hunter Seeker damage increased by 25%. This Hunter Seeker will be one of the top grenades now. Possibly top two. I think Hunter Seeker and Epicenter will probably be the best grenades. Hex Grenade damage reduced by 70% only, and duration reduced to 3 seconds. Oh, so you killed it with the 70%, then you said, might as well make it so nobody is gonna ever use this, even by accident. This destroys a Mo's build pretty much 100%. The Mo's build that was using this, the grenade Mo's builds that usually you would use a rocket launcher with it, were a top tier build, but there was other builds that were as strong or even slightly above that build. And that build, also, if you guys don't know, this build was specifically targeted with multiple nerfs already. Now Hex is useless. The only way that build is going to survive is with rocket launchers, and you're going to have to only focus on rocket launchers, but still this, like, you just killed the Hex grenade completely. Firestorm damage reduced by 70%. Firestorm, the normal grenade, also take into consideration that this is just on the baseline of Hex. So every Hex grenade is going to get this damage reduction, but a Hex baseline grenade is not the best grenade. It's not that good. Getting a reoccurring Hex, which is like one of the rarest drops in the game, makes it really strong, but it's also one of the rarest drops in the game, and now one of the rarest drops in the game sucks. Firestorm damage reduced by 70%. The same thing as this. The normal Firestorm is not that good of a grenade. A normal Epicenter is probably better than a normal Firestorm. Now its damage reduced by 70%, and the Firestorm, the good Firestorms, like, what are they? I think they're like Diluvian Rain Firestorm or something like that. Those really good ones are rare. I'm pretty sure are rarer than even the recurring Hexes. So even more of one of the rarest items in the game, reduced by 70%. That's useless now. There's no reason to use a Firestorm after this. Zero reason. And this is also taken into consideration that there's not many like legendary grenade mods in this game that are even useful in any sense. And this is kind of pretty much now, if you want to use any grenade build, you either have to use a Hunter Seeker or Epicenter. And I don't think either of those are going to be good enough to make like grenade builds useful. So now we have artifacts. It was reported that the legendary artifact elemental projectile has a bug resulting in the max value being displayed at 183 instead of the actual max value of 113. Therefore, we addressed the discrepancy and reduced the max value to 90%. I don't think I saw this the first time I actually read it. This doesn't make any sense. So basically they're saying here that the grenade was actually giving you 113% damage increase even though it was showing 183. But now they reduced it to 90? I don't... Okay. That really doesn't make any sense to why they even like did a bunch of this other information. Like, it was displaying a wrong number. The number was lower that it was actually giving you, so now we reduced it past that point. I mean, that artifact is still probably going to be useful just because artifacts don't have many uses. There's only a few artifacts that are actually used. Like, most of the artifacts are terrible, like slam or slide things that are basically utility and don't actually give any power increases. Vault Hunter adjustments. The current state of Moses, Iron Bear, Zane, Digiclone, and Flax pets have been made a player focus on other elements besides those Vault Hunter's fundamental action skills in the late game. While longer term solutions to scale and their damage is explored, we have boosted the health on Iron Bear, Digiclone, and pets to make them more viable. We'll have more to say about long-term solutions for the characters in the future. Yeah, you should probably not be nerfing a ton of builds into the ground when, like, I don't know, one of the builds you just nerfed into the ground is on a character that literally doesn't have an action ability that is in any way useful. Iron Bear is so useless that if you accidentally click the keybind to get into it, you just reduced your power massively. And they increase its health. Health doesn't... They were decently tanky before, and health doesn't matter when it does 0 damage. You could use the worst legendary item in the game, and it's still going to do 10 times better than an Iron Bear. All pets' health increased by 50%. This helps, I guess, but the issue with Flax pets weren't that they were too squishy. If you were actually doing a Flax pet build where your pet is in any way a fundamental part to your build, your pets are ridiculously tanky anyway because you can heal them percentages of the damage you deal and other stuff. It's not their health that make pet builds useless. It's literally they don't do enough damage. I guess this helps with non-pet builds, which doesn't really make sense why you'd buff pets for non-pet builds, which is what this does. Digiclone health increased by 100%. This is actually a good change. Digiclone dies too quickly. Address a bug with Salvation where grenades were giving lifesteal. I don't actually know what Salvation is off the top of my head. I'll have to look that up. Bug fixes. Psychos will now use their Vault Hunter mode name in True Vault Hunter mode. Reduce the optional respawn missions from Galaxy Progress, or remove the optional respawn missions. Address a reported bug where completely sane Sid didn't always become hostile when using flak. Address a bug where Ratch would not properly spawn during Ratch Up, which potentially blocked completion of that side mission. Included a modification so Lilith would continue to move toward the door in Shiv's confession chamber without from the ground up. Lower the chance for weapon to drop from the Panchico machine. I think that's the thing that you just have to like shoot targets and it spawns items, maybe. Include a modification so that Zane's Digiclone will no longer spawn into a cage in Cistern of Slaughter. I was actually going to make a video on this. I don't know why it's just Cistern because that's the worst one. Shield boosters were modified and are now set for auto pickup. This is actually a good change. In addition, was introduced the Eridium chests are no longer listed as a red chest in the Exocast extension. And that's it. Overall, if they removed the nerfs to like Flacker, both the grenades, pretty much if they removed every nerf from this, maybe besides Aluda. Honestly, Aluda didn't need a nerf. If they removed all of the other nerfs besides Aluda, this would have been a good patch. At this point, I can see a massive amount of people, if they even continue to keep playing the game, that they will be playing offline almost all the time. This is just a terrible update. Almost none of the buffs that they actually gave are going to make those weapons useful, and majority of the nerfs that we have absolutely destroy items and destroy builds with that. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more Borderlands 3 content. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a comment down below what you think about these patch notes, what you think about Borderlands 3 as a whole, and thanks for watching.